When my boss died, he left me one thing, the company car. Not because it was worth much, but because he said, "You've earned it more than I ever did." It wasn't a gift for show. It was a handshake that meant something. The car was a '09 Silverado, scratched on one side, toolbox bolted in the bed, seatbelt frayed from years of him pulling it too fast. To anyone else, it was just a work truck. To me, it was proof that a man could see value in another man, not in numbers, but in hours, sweat, and trust. When he passed, the shop felt different. Same walls, same smell of oil and burnt coffee, but the air went quiet. He wasn't just my boss. He was the kind of man who'd take a cigarette break, only to help you fix your own mistake without saying a word about it later. He didn't talk about lessons. He lived them. I remember the day he handed me the keys. "It's not new," he said, "but neither am I. You'll take better care of it than anyone." I thought he was joking. He wasn't. He'd already written my name on the glove box registration. For 5 years, that truck stayed with me. I used it for work runs, parts, deliveries, even brought it to his funeral. The new owner, his son, stood there in an expensive suit he didn't look comfortable in, shaking hands like it was a business transaction. He inherited everything overnight: the shop, the tools, the land, even the old man's office chair. I didn't envy him. I pitied him. Because some things money can't hand you, like respect. The son was polite enough at first. A few weeks after the funeral, he called a meeting in the break room. I remember the way he leaned against the fridge, like he owned it, said things like streamlining operations and modernizing the workflow. He was 27 and sounded like a podcast. I kept my head down, did the work. The crew thinned out one by one. People who'd been with the company longer than he'd been alive started resigning. He called it progress. I called it erasing his father. 2 months later, I walked out back after closing and noticed the empty space where the truck used to be. No note, no call, just gone. At first, I thought maybe someone borrowed it. It happened before. We shared vehicles sometimes. I checked with the guys. No one had it. The next morning, I asked him directly. He didn't even look up from his laptop. "Oh, that old truck? Yeah, I sold it. It was company property. You'll get a replacement soon." He said it like he was doing me a favor. My jaw locked. I didn't say a word, just nodded once and walked back to the shop floor. He sold my truck, the one his father left me, like it was a scrap of inventory. That night, I sat in the driver's seat of my own beat-up Civic and stared at my hands. They didn't shake. I wasn't angry, not yet, just hollow, like something had been taken that no one else could see. I didn't fight him, didn't yell. What was the point? Some men think power's in talking louder. Others know it's in waiting. A week passed. I was back to working doubles, pushing through the noise of compressors and drills, trying not to look at the empty parking spot near the loading dock. It was habit. I'd park there every morning, sip my coffee, run the checklist before the others showed up. Now it was just asphalt and oil stains. Then came the call. I was closing up late, around 8:30, the light outside dimming through the shop windows. My phone buzzed with a number I didn't know. "Hey, this is Ron from McKinley Auto," the voice said. "You sold us that Silverado last week, right?" I frowned. "No, sir, I didn't sell anything." There was a pause. "Well, that's strange. The title had your name on the glove box registration. We were cleaning it out before resale and found a sealed envelope inside, addressed to you. Figured we should call." I went still. The only thing that moved was my pulse. "An envelope?" I said slowly. "Yeah. Has your full name on it, in handwriting. Looks old." The man cleared his throat. You want me to hold on to it or mail it out?" I swallowed. "No, I'll come get it myself." He gave me the address. Small-town dealership 20 minutes away. I thanked him and hung up, my hand still wrapped around the phone long after the call ended. The truck had been sold without a word, and somehow it was still trying to find its way back to me. But that was just the beginning. I drove to the dealership the next morning before work. The sky was still gray, the kind of dull, washed-out light that makes everything look like it's been forgotten. McKinley Auto was a small lot. 10, maybe 12 used cars lined up like tired soldiers. The office door chimed when I walked in. A man in his 50s came out wiping his hands on a rag. "You the fella for the Silverado envelope?" "Yeah," I said. "Name's Mark." He nodded, ducked behind the counter, and came back with a plain white envelope, yellowed at the edges. My name was written across the front in pen. Steady, familiar handwriting. The kind you recognize instantly, even after years. It was his. My old boss. I didn't open it right away. My hands didn't trust themselves. I just stood there staring at the thing, like opening it might make it disappear. Ron shifted awkwardly. Guy who sold it said he was the owner's son. Kinda smug, if you ask me. Didn't strike me as the sentimental type. He wanted quick cash. I almost lowballed him just out of spite. I looked up. "You remember what he said?" He shrugged. "Just that the truck was old company property. He didn't need the dead man's junk." His words. Guess I should have known that truck meant something. You can tell when a vehicle's been cared for. That line stuck with me. You can tell when something's been cared for. I thanked him, walked out, and sat in my car for a while. The paper was soft, worn from time. Inside I could feel a folded sheet. Maybe two. I opened it. His handwriting filled the page, shaky but clean. "Mark, if you're reading this, I didn't make it back to the shop. I kept meaning to hand you the papers myself, but the weeks got short. I left the truck in your name. You've earned that and more. I told my lawyer to make sure it's done, but if for some reason the paperwork doesn't go through, don't argue with anyone about it. Just know it's yours in every way that matters. You took care of my people when I couldn't. That means more than money ever will. Keep the wheels turning. Jay." I sat there with the letter open on my lap, feeling that quiet kind of ache that sits behind your ribs and doesn't move. When someone like him says something means more than money, it's not poetry, it's truth. But as I read it again, something in the wording hit me. I told my lawyer to make sure it's done. If that letter existed, there was a paper trail. Maybe small, maybe buried, but real. By the time I got back to the shop, the son, Ryan, was in the office. His desk looked like a showroom. Expensive pens, unopened notebooks, 2 monitors, and 0 soul. "Morning," he said without looking up. "You're late." I had to pick something up. He didn't ask what, just nodded like he didn't care. I set the letter on his desk. "You recognize the handwriting?" He finally glanced up, and I saw it. That flicker. Guilt's first heartbeat. "Where'd you get that?" "McKinley Auto. They found it in the glove box. Thought I should have it." He reached for the paper, but I didn't let go. "Your father wrote this to me. Said the truck was mine." Ryan leaned back, trying for calm. "That truck was never legally transferred. It was company property. If you think—" "I don't think anything," I cut in. I know what he said, and I know what kind of man he was. He stared at me for a few seconds, his jaw tightening. "You can keep the letter. Consider it a keepsake." "Already planned to." I walked out before he could say anything else. My boots echoed on the concrete. The rest of the guys stopped what they were doing. They'd heard enough to know something had shifted. At lunch, one of them, Benny, leaned over and asked, "That about the truck?" "Yeah," he whistled low. "That kid's digging his own grave. You gonna fight it?" I shook my head. "Not yet." The truth is, I didn't need to. Not when the right people were still around. That afternoon, I found the lawyer's number in an old email thread from 2 years back. Mr. Harlan, the one who'd handled the boss's estate. I called, half expecting a receptionist to brush me off, but he answered himself. "Mark, I remember you," he said right away. His voice had the calm of someone who'd seen too much chaos to be impressed by any of it. "I need to ask about the truck," I said. He paused. "The Silverado?" "Yeah. His son sold it last week, but I found a letter that says it was mine." Another pause. "That shouldn't have happened. I filed the transfer paperwork. The title was supposed to be updated posthumously." So it's legal? It was, he said, until someone interfered. That's a criminal act, Mark. Fraud, technically. I stared at the floor. What happens now? That depends, he said. Do you want to press it, or just let me make a few calls? I thought about the son's smirk, the way he said company property, like it meant something holy. Make the calls, I said. Good, Harlan replied. And Mark, I think your old boss would have liked that answer. I hung up. My hands were steady again. By closing time, Ryan was pacing the office, phone in hand, voice sharp through the glass. The rest of the crew kept their heads down, pretending not to hear. When he finally slammed the door and left, Benny looked at me and grinned. You stir something up? Not yet, I said. But I think it's starting. And then silence, the kind that means something's gone wrong. By the next morning, everyone in the shop could feel it. The kind of tension that makes even the air sound cautious. Ryan's car was already in the lot when I pulled up. The blinds in his office were shut. Normally, he liked people to see him working. That day, he hid. I clocked in, wiped my hands, and pretended to focus on the carburetor I'd been rebuilding. But I could hear the muffled rhythm of his voice through the glass. Short, clipped, defensive. He wasn't running the business anymore. He was managing damage. Around noon, his door opened. He walked out fast, jaw tight, phone glued to his hand. When his eyes met mine, there wasn't arrogance this time. Just that shallow, nervous look men get when they've been caught, but haven't figured out how deep the hole is yet. He didn't say a word, just grabbed his jacket and left. I waited until the sound of his car faded before going back into the office. I didn't snoop, didn't have to. The phone on his desk was still lit up, the screen showing one missed call after another. The top of the list read, Harlan and Co. I went back to work, a small calm settling in. I'd done nothing, and yet everything was already moving. Around 4, I was wiping down my bench when the shop phone rang. Benny answered. Yeah, he's here, he said, covering the receiver and handing it to me. Some dealership guy. I frowned. Ron? When I picked up, I recognized the same steady voice from a few days ago. Mark, you got a minute? Sure. What's going on? Well, he said, you might want to come down here again. That kid, Ryan, showed up this morning, trying to buy the truck back. Offered me double what I paid. I told him no, because once we filed the paperwork, it's locked. Then he started asking questions about the letter, if I still had a copy. My grip tightened. Did you give him one? No. I told him it's property of the buyer. That'd be you, if the title transfer goes through like the lawyer said. Which, by the way, it did. Just got confirmed this morning. The truck's officially in your name now. I exhaled slowly. You're kidding. Nope. Mr. Harlan must have pulled strings fast. I don't know what's happening over there, but the kid looked like he swallowed a hornet nest. Figured you should know. I appreciate that, Ron. No problem. Oh, and there's something else. You might want to check the glove box again. There was a small box tucked behind the liner. Didn't notice it before. Looks like a watch case. A pause. Didn't open it, he added, but it had your initials on it. I closed my eyes. My old boss had done everything quietly but thoroughly. He didn't believe in speeches. He believed in gestures. And somehow, even from beyond the grave, he was still teaching lessons in patience. I told Ron I'd come by after work. When I hung up, Benny was watching me. You look like you just got promoted to Ghost Whisperer. Something like that, I said, managing a small smile. At 6, I drove straight to the dealership. The truck sat near the back of the lot, freshly washed, sun glinting off the hood like nothing had ever happened. For a moment, I just stood there looking at it. The scuffs on the bumper, the dent on the right door from when the old man backed into a toolbox 5 years ago, all still there. It felt like seeing an old friend who'd been through a storm and made it out clean. Ron handed me the keys. Glad it found its way back? Me too. I opened the glove box, found the little black case wedged behind the liner, and flipped it open. Inside was a worn pocket watch. Silver, scratched. Nothing fancy. But on the inside cover, engraved in tiny letters, were 3 words: "Fix what matters." I ran my thumb over the words, the kind of advice that only makes sense once you've lived long enough to understand it. Ron cleared his throat. "We had to replace the battery, but it still ticks. Must mean something." "It does," I said quietly. Driving back, I didn't head home. I turned instead toward the shop. The lights were still on, Ryan's car back in the lot. I parked the Silverado right next to his and went inside. He was behind his desk, pacing, phone to his ear again. When he saw me, he hung up. "You talked to Harlan," I said. He didn't answer. Just rubbed his face like it might erase what he'd done. "They confirmed the transfer," I continued. "Your dad made it legal. You sold what didn't belong to you." He slumped into his chair. "You don't understand. The business is bleeding. Taxes, payroll, equipment leases. I needed cash." "So you stole from the one man who built this place?" He looked up, desperate now. "I'll fix it, Mark. I'll buy it back. I cut him off. "You can't buy back what wasn't yours." For a second, the only sound in the room was the buzz of the ceiling light. Then I said, "I'm not pressing charges." His head jerked up. "You're not?" "No. But you're going to make it right." "How?" "By telling the truth," I said. "To the crew, to the clients, to anyone who asks what happened here." He swallowed hard. "That'll ruin me?" I nodded. "Maybe that's what it costs." I turned to leave, but paused at the door. "Your dad once told me something," I said quietly. "He said a man's worth isn't what he owns. It's what he keeps clean. You might want to start there." Then I walked out, the Silverado keys heavy in my pocket, the pocket watch ticking softly against my palm. They thought I'd just let it go. I didn't. The next few weeks moved slow, the kind of slow that feels earned. The shop kept running, though the silence inside it had changed. Ryan showed up less and less. When he did, his voice didn't fill the place anymore. It just sort of existed. Word got around, quietly the way truth usually does in small towns. Vendors stopped offering him easy deals. Clients started asking for me directly. Even the crew, the guys who'd kept their heads down for months, looked at me differently. Not like a boss, not like a hero, but like someone who'd outlasted a storm without leaving the room. I didn't need revenge. Watching balance return was enough. A week later, I found a folded note in my locker. I didn't have to guess who it was from. "Mark, you win. I'm selling the company." There's no saving it. I thought running it would make me him. It didn't. I'll clear out my things by Friday. Ryan. No apology, no excuses. Just resignation. The kind that comes when a man finally looks in the mirror and sees what's missing. By Monday, he was gone. No goodbye, no speech. Just an empty office and a faint smell of expensive cologne that didn't belong here in the first place. The crew didn't ask questions. They just kept working, maybe sensing that asking would break the quiet we'd all grown to appreciate. I took over the office not because I wanted power, but because someone had to keep the lights on. I didn't change much, just took down the glass award Ryan had hung on the wall with his own name etched across it, and replaced it with a framed photo. It was a picture of the old man, my mentor, standing beside that Silverado, laughing, grease on his cheek, holding a wrench like it was part of his hand. Every morning after that, I'd unlock the front door, flick on the lights, and nod toward that photo. "We're still running it your way," I'd say under my breath. Some days I swear the air in that office feels lighter, like it agrees. The truck stayed parked out back, right where it always had been, but I kept it clean now. Polished, tires full, the bed cleared of clutter. Not because it was valuable, but because it had finally come home. A month later, I drove out to the edge of town, to the old man's grave. The sky was gray again, the kind that looks like rain but never follows through. I brought the watch with me. I set it down on the headstone for a second, listening to its faint ticking. It had kept perfect time since the day I found it. "I fixed what mattered," I said quietly. Not to anyone. Not for anyone. just to make the words real. I slipped the watch back into my pocket and started the truck. The engine turned over like it had been waiting for the right reason to breathe again. On the way home, I passed McKinley Auto. Ron was outside smoking, waved when he saw me. I honked once. Small gesture, but it felt like a full circle. Back in town, the shop was quiet. End of the day, tools put away, the smell of oil fading into the concrete. I locked up, set the alarm, and stood there for a moment, watching the sun dip behind the building. There was peace in it. Not triumph, not pride, just peace. The kind that comes when you stop trying to win and just start fixing what's broken. I got in the truck, rolled down the window, and rested my arm on the door. The photo of the old man sat clipped to the visor, smiling that same grin that used to fill the whole room. "You were right," I said to the empty seat. "A man's worth isn't what he owns. It's what he keeps clean." The light turned gold over the road ahead, the kind that makes even dust look holy. I shifted into gear and drove, not away from anything, just forward.